Welcome back to Viewmasters. Rusty, we're back.
This podcast will never die.
This this podcast will never die, but if we ever start a Patreon, you should not trust us with your money.
You know what it feels like, though? Do you remember Return of the Living Dead Part 2?
No, but I know you just mentioned it the other
I
day.
just watched it. It's like in the beginning when the two ugly kids open up that
I'm with you so
55-gallon
far.
drum, the 55-gallon drum of government biochemical waste, and out pops, the zombie. That's like us. They opened the 55-gallon drums, and out we popped, and we're back.
I want to tell you a story of what happened the other day because I think you'll find it funny, and it ties into what I was saying about how anyone can get radicalized. Because even I get radicalized. Like on Reddit, when you read a lot of one subreddit, you get it more and more and more, and then it becomes what you think about. So I don't know if you sub to fuck cars, but I am like so anti-car, even though I have a car. But like I am all about pedestrian power. And when my old apartment was like on a corner where people would never look, and they just make a right turn on red and like plow into whatever pedestrian was there. So I can get surprisingly aggressive with cars. And the other day I was crossing my street going up towards my house, and one of my neighbors was coming towards me. And this car made a right on red without even looking, almost hits him. And my neighbor didn't really seem to give a shit, but I was like, this is my fight too. So I was like shaking my head and like throwing my arms up at the guy. And the guy like kept like glancing back at me, and I did a very exaggerated like "fuck you" with my arms.
Nice.
And yeah, I know it's pretty badass. But I realized only then that there's two neighbors in this story. One who was crossing the street, and the guy who was driving is the guy that lives directly across the street from me. And I was like, I didn't want to have random bad energy with this guy. So recently, when I've been going for walks, I haven't been wearing my hat or sunglasses. And Megan's like, why are you not wearing a hat and sunglasses? You always wear that. And I was like, I gotta decouple my image from the guy that he saw crossing the road.
So the adrenaline wore off, and now you settled back to being a timid, fearful old man.
You won't believe this next part because you'll be able to picture it. I was walking down the street, and he was in his yard looking at me, and I started doing like putting my arms up as if it was like a condition I have, like a spasm. I was walking like Jar Jar Binks or something. And I was like, if Megan looks out the window, she's going to be like, what is he doing?
What were you doing?
I was trying to make it look like, so the guy would look at me and think, okay, actually he wasn't gesturing at me. He always does that. He has kind of like all kind of Tourette's.
At least you realize that you're crazy.
Oh, I know I'm crazy. I know many of the ways in which I'm crazy. And today we're going to be talking about Siskel and Ebert, a little bit different of a topic.
What?
And we'll get into that later. Let me ask you something. In your old age, do you always make like a shouting sound as you get up?
No, I have to stretch for like 10 minutes to get out of bed. It's like I just worked out and I have to do a post stretch of sleep.
Wait, do you really stretch?
In bed, like I do like a bunch of I can't get up without stretching. I'm that old.
Can't get up without stretching. I don't even know that reads as old to me. I don't see old people stretching in bed.
I have to do like back stretches. Like I have to just be like a cat. Like how the way you have two cats, so you know how they stretch, like they arch their back and then they like I have to
my
do that to make it.
My cats are both like 2 years old, and I can comfortably say that they've stretched more times than I have in my life.
Stretching is important. I actually exercised for the first time last night because I've been gaining a disgusting amount of weight.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Every time I get on the scale, it's like a pound heavier. So I said to myself, when I get to like 175, I got to make a change, and it hit 175 yesterday. So I had to make a change. To you, you're probably like 175 is not too bad.
Oh yeah, dude. When I'm 175, I'm like, I look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, I was walking around at 160. So to gain 15 pounds since like February or March, it's rough for me.
Oh yeah.
And plus, As you would, most people would probably agree that when you're walking around with like excessive weight, it just takes its toll on you. You're just tired, sluggish. This sucks.
I don't feel like myself unless I am below 190, which is sad because I've probably only spent like 23% of my life below 190. Dude. And when, like, as you know, I waste money on so many things, but
Mm.
only when I'm feeling thin do I waste money on clothes. So I can barely wear any of my clothes. I'm like a knight with no arms looking at a short sword collection. Sword collection. I,
That cut.
as you know, I usually wear one pair of pants. And when we were shooting the movie over the summer, which I'm sure I'll talk about later, but I was talking to one of the actors and they were like, "Oh, this has been a great shoot. I really love this project." And I was happy because there's always the people you think you've won over and the people you think like, am I in the bubble with them? And I was like, "Oh, I'm glad they like the movie." And I was sitting very unnaturally on the floor, like,
I could picture you being unnatural.
and as the actor is talking to me, I just hear my pants ripping. And I'm like, I'm just going to pretend that I don't know what's happening. They didn't notice, but I've been living with that hole in my pants for a long time now.
You know what I really hate though is especially when you either bloated or you have a little bit of weight, like your shirts are just so snug around your midsection.
Oh, dude.
It's ridiculously uncomfortable. I feel like I'm suffocating myself.
I have so many shirts that like I just want to see again. The whole hierarchy has been dismantled.
Jen had said to me that I just look like clearly midlife crisis because obviously last time you saw me, my hair is long. It's like almost down to my shoulders now. And with the weight and stuff, and she's just like, "What are you doing? You just look like you give up." And I'm just like, I got to make a change. It's time for that
Oh yeah.
change. But because the extra weight, I haven't been able to wear a lot of my t-shirts. So I've been wearing pretty much. I have two that are like real larges, or like a large that fits.
Mhm.
And Nova said to me tonight, she's like, "Daddy, you wear the same shirt every day. Can you wear a different shirt?" And I'm just like, "Wow, my daughter notices. Everybody probably when I drop her off at school,
Oh,
noticing
dude.
I wear the same shirt."
I've fallen back to like bedtime shirts that never thought they'd see the light of day. Like
You have some embarrassing bedtime shirts.
I know. Me and Bria's short played at Beyond Fest, which is a great fest. I was glad to be in it, but I I had no clothes that day. The only thing that fit me was my shirt for the video game Celeste, which you and I both know I've barely played. I'm such a poser. But that shirt was like, I can't believe I made it out of the house, much less to like an event.
Did Bria say anything to you? Was she mildly
Well, she was
embarrassed?
like, why didn't you come up on stage like after because everyone came up on stage? And I was like, I told her straight out.
You were like Lucas watching the orchestra from that sewer grate. That's what you were doing.
Lucas watching. I feel like I recently rewatched that, but that doesn't ring any bells.
I think you watched it here. I think we watched it actually on VHS when we were eating pizza.
Oh yeah, okay. That does sound like the person I'd watch it with.
There you go.
We've just passed Halloween. Let's talk about that a little bit because we both have sugar issues.
I can't get it out of my house fast enough.
I mostly resisted completely. So
I'm impressed.
That's good.
Yeah, I went a couple days without, and then last night and today I ate healthy dinner, so I was just like, oh, I could really let loose.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was very problematic. I could not stop myself. It was just like candy after candy after candy. Like I looked at the clean garbage bag I just put in the garbage can, and it like filled now with wrappers. I'm so disgusted.
Yeah, I will be off sugar, feeling better. I mean, off sugar, in obvious ways. I'm sure I'm consuming sugar constantly and everything else. But and then I'll be like, oh, let me just have a piece of candy. And then 3 days later, I'm like rimming one of those 4 feet tall Easter bunnies.
Yeah. I was saying before though, I worked out last night for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it like a 15-minute workout because I haven't worked out in forever. And I am so sore today. I was barely able to walk. It feels like I have lead weights on around my ankles.
Oh, did you forget to take them off?
What do you mean by that?
You remember like remember the leg weights you would have like as a kid that were like the bands? It was like, remember? They were like
I had no
stuffed.
job. I I had no job. I had no weights as a kid. I had to improvise like Rocky in Rocky
Oh
4.
wow,
But
that's smart.
my mom did have like those weights that you would wrap around your ankles and do like leg lifts. Is that what you're
Hmm.
talking about?
Yes.
Oh my! As a kid, you would just put them on and like do like try to do martial arts. This was to show how badass you are.
Do people still have leg weights? Were those real? They were
I
huge in
don't
the
think they
80s.
did anything. I don't know.
But that gave me an idea for a character in a movie you could make where he's like he's got to fight the bully, and Rocky style he exercises using improvised stuff, but it's all like 80s toys. So he's
Oh my
like bench pressing the flag, the aircraft carrier. That was for the audience. I know that you know the USS flag.
Yeah, I'm just picturing bench pressing. Jen would come in the basement and just be like, "What?
It's like he spent $3,000 or however much it costs now.
Who needs a Peloton when you can buy a
Yeah.
USS flag and bench press it?"
If you could find something else for me to lift, I'd be happy to see it.
Oh man. Remember those remember the Hulk Hogan workout kit that they would like sell to kids?
Oh yeah.
That was his shit. That did nothing. Like that
Oh
thing
yeah.
with the spring, like with Brandon using in Goonies when they like tie him up, like that spring thing.
Mhm.
I think every kid had that, whether
Yeah,
they wanted it or not.
that spring thing just spawned in your home in the 80s.
It was just that I think every household had that.
And it had like I don't know how to describe it, but I hated the feeling of it or like the sound it would make or something about it was like, ugh.
Mm.
And if it got tangled,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh my God.
Get your dick caught in it.
Do you remember
Yeah.
our kind of friend? I wasn't really friends with him, but you were. But do you remember how he like was a real champion of fucking the toilet? Like this space between the seat and the actual toilet itself.
I love the phrasing of that. It was a real champion of fucking the
He
toilet.
was an enthusiast.
Remember how much brain power kids would put towards like masturbating in a new way
Oh yeah.
to make it simulate real sex without actually having a clue what real sex was like. But yeah, I know the kid you're talking about. And I don't think I tried that. I think I tried it with like either the mattress or something not as heavy as a mattress, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah. I
What about
remember
you? You went toilet?
filling two Ziploc bags filled with like warm water and then trying to like connect them. And you know that I don't have the manual dexterity to do that.
You know,
But
MacGyver.
that bed just look I pissed the bed after drinking gallons upon gallons of water.
Uh, the thing about having tried, having sex with a toilet, though, even as a kid, like I was kind of like enough of a germaphobe to realize that's very unsanitary.
I mean, to this day, I don't really understand it because it's like, how does your dick get in there? I don't know.
I don't know. Wasn't it just supposed to be the pressure of the toilet seat to like give you a little like friction? I don't know. I
I
think
assume so, but
get him on the phone. Let's
look,
let's see how it worked.
it was like an arms race back then when you're like a kid.
You know, another thing though. I mean, I don't know about you, but my mom was very keen on to walk in just unannounced into
Oh
rooms,
yeah.
especially late at night, like just to say goodnight. And it was always like you always had to have the blanket nearby. It's very
I
like
oh yeah.
it was such
I
a stealthy operation to
I
get.
said this during the eulogy at my mother's funeral. My orgasms would summon her. But this is not even a joke. I did say it to Megan recently because I like had jerked off and it was like right as I was climaxing, I heard her get up from like where she was and like walk into the room. And I'm like, why? I was like, you were sitting over there for like 3 hours. Like, how do you come in at the worst time? It's like, you're like my mother.
Yeah, but you wouldn't care though if she walked in on you.
No, yeah, I don't care. But it's just, it's more of like,
Startled.
in the act of coming, someone opens a door and you've got to explain yourself. Kind of cuts into the orgasm's pleasure. This is the
I'm in
most I've
agreement.
talked about jerking off since I was like 14.
I know. It all started with the kid that fucked the toilet seat.
So today we're going to talk about Siskel and Ebert. And the movie research can be difficult because we were doing an episode on Double Team. And Rusty, you got so into it, you flew to North Korea with Dennis Rodman. How was that, by the way?
I can't talk about it.
Oh, okay. Um, I can't believe I've watched Double Team 3 times, and that episode will never see the light of day.
You never know, but it's weird that I did enjoy the movie. I told you I watched Freddy's Revenge last night, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember watching that movie? Like, have you watched it somewhat recently?
I watched, so a couple of years ago, there was a documentary called Scream Queen that was about the lead actor, Mark Paxton?
Mark Patton.
Mark Patton.
Yeah.
And it was at Fantastic Fest, and it was one of those documentaries that you see at Fantastic Fest, and you're like, "Oh my god, I love that guy! I love the story," you know. And they had a screening of Nightmare 2 like the same day that I can't remember if I went to or not. So to answer your question, no, I haven't watched it too recently.
I mean, it is what it is. It's not. It's watchable, but it's definitely not the worst in the series like they try to paint it to be. You know.
I feel like everyone says Freddy's Dead is the worst in the series. I feel like there's like universal agreement on that.
I saw that in theaters when you got the 3D glasses and everything. I saw that at Sunrise Mall, which doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, and of course, at the time when you're like a sixth grader, you love it. But the movie's really unwatchable. But with Nightmare on Elm Street 2 that I watched yesterday, and I remember this from the last time I watched it. You remember the pool party scene a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Besides Brian Wimmer being in that scene.
Wait, because Freddy jumps out of the dream, right, and just starts running around attacking in real life?
The movie's so bizarre. It goes to like where it's setting it up that there's something like internally wrong with this guy, and he's like seeing Freddy in his dreams. To him just being Freddy at this party, it's just like, oh, I'm actually Freddy, and I'm just killing everyone. I can't help it. But the lead, and I can't even remember her name out, something Myers, like Kim Myers or something, is like, I love you, and he's like, in the Freddy voice, Robert Englund's like, I love you too, but he's like trying to fight it. But in the pool party scene though, there was like a like a pop punk kind of girl, and she's definitely stands out as an extra. So it's just like, oh, this girl's cute. And of course, being curious, I had to look her up to see if she had a credit, which she didn't. But I did discover that there's like
a community of people searching for this girl as well.
There is, and I'm just like, there it totally is. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm one of these middle-aged men doing the same thing as these other pathetic people. What I'm doing with my life. But nobody knows who she is. And she's also probably like 70 now.
I'm sure I've mentioned this on the show before, but remember how there was a guy we went to high school with who I used to read this message board called punkrock.net that then became BCO. You don't need to know that. But there was a thread on there that was like, check out this crazy guy on the IMDb message boards. And I clicked on it, and it was a guy that we went to school with. And we didn't go to like a big school. And he would just write on every, like the sister from every 80s sitcom. He was like, you're beautiful. Call me.
I do remember at a party I went to, I think it was a sleepover at a friend's house back in like 5th grade. They played this movie, and I was still kind of like a little bit on the wimpy side. I would watch horror movies, but I'd be like also like convince myself to be scared. So I'd be like, I can't watch this. And I kept seeing like at the pool party, it was just like, he's slashing.
He's slashing. I have a memory as a kid of feeling like his makeup looked wrong in this one. Doesn't it look a little different?
Weird. Yeah, he looks like a almost like a cheap mask at like a discount store.
Mm-hmm.
Did they have issues with Robert Englund then? Contract issues or something? Or am I thinking of a different Nightmare on Elm Street?
Hold on, let me text Robert Englund. Hey Rob, were you ready for primetime, bitch?
I like how you deliver that line. It is an interesting movie just because, you know, obviously the gay subtext. Weird acting performance by Marshall Bell.
Who is Marshall Bell?
He's from he's Quado, the guy that has Quado.
Oh, yeah.
But I do like the look because it's like mid 80s when like the 80s were coming out of like that 70s browns and mustards. So it was like more vibrant, and it had like that cool look to it.
What's weird about his performance?
I don't know.
You're just used to him having a mutant in his stomach.
Was he the dad in Stand By Me too? Not two, you know what I mean? Stand by Me as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, he
He was,
was.
right? He's just always like, I don't know. He just has that like disposition. But in this one, I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't care for it.
I was remembering Stand By Me when he says like the wrong kid died or whatever. He says something really
Oh
mean.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh my God. Like watching that as a kid, it was like, I can't believe he would say that.
You got all emotional, like, and then you're like, wait, my dad's not like that at all. I love that about movies where you like try to equate your own childhood to the characters, and you're like, wait, I have nothing. I don't had no experiences like that at all.
Oh, my whole life, especially when I was little, was just stolen valor from movies. The actual events of my life were irrelevant.
I feel like we both could relate. Do you remember that show Dream On HBO? I know you didn't have HBO.
Wait, what was I don't remember the how what was Dream On about?
He was just like a guy that like grew up in front of the TV and he just had a very warped perspective, especially on like sex and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Don't you hate that about being middle aged? Like when you watch a movie, clearly like a teen movie, you can't relate to any characters anymore.
Oh yeah.
You don't understand that word. Like when I watched Can't Hardly Wait the other night, it's just like I can't identify with any one of these characters anymore. I don't even know if I was once like this, but
Wait,
clearly,
isn't the concept of that movie he wants to get her a letter?
yeah, it's really cringy. Ethan Embry's character is horrendous. There's
Those
redeeming parts of the movie, but his character is just really gross.
those movies gave me some bad ideas. I can say this. I never won with a letter.
No, and it's funny because of these movies. I blame all those movies from the 80s and 90s that to think if you told somebody like your feelings, it would somehow like convince them that you're you're all right.
Yeah, it's like the strength of your feelings is like the all the gasoline like the situation needs.
I think even worse than that is when if you got dumped by a girl and you wrote like a letter, it's like she dumped
Oh
you.
yeah.
Like, would you really care about your feelings about that?
Yeah.
I'll never forget mailing a letter and regretting it immediately after I put it in the mailbox.
I remember one time I sent a girl a letter, but I thought I might have gotten the address wrong. So I wrote another letter and she got two letters. That's the point. Two identical letters.
Did she ever say anything to you or just ignored you for the rest of her life?
No, she said I got both letters. But before we get to Siskel and Ebert, there is a critic that we must recognize here. Because when I was doing my year in review, I remembered that Lee Gambon died.
Oh, yeah, that's sad.
Frequent guests on the show, Lee Gambon. All I can say is if there's a heaven, Mr. Belvedere better get a security detail.
Yeah, it's very upset when he told me that. I loved his take on, all these 80s sitcoms. I actually saw on YouTube there was a tribute to him by a fan. And
Oh,
it's
that's
just
cool.
like, oh, yeah, worth checking out. Detailed his life a little bit. There's not many details, but
Me and Megan definitely conceived in Japan. And I was in Japan when Lee died. So you never know. If Megan ever comes to me and says, I'm worried our daughter is talking about who's the boss on like a critical level,
you'll know.
I'd be like, oh my God, he's back.
So are you ready for fatherhood?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Do you have all this accoutrements set up?
No, not at all. None of them.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you need to like prepare, but I think the craziest moment was when we brought Nova home from the hospital and Nova was just crying incessantly. And Jen and I just looked at each other and it's like, oh boy. But then, you get the hang of it very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
It's your kid.
That's, my staff is great. So let's get into our feature presentation, Rusty. We both watched some Siskel and Ebert episodes. Now, I was inspired for us to watch this because I've been reading a book called Opposable Thumbs that just came out. Very entertaining nonfiction book about their history and relationship. What was your relationship to Siskel and Ebert growing up?
What time were they on? Because I don't remember as a young kid seeing that much of it. I remember Gene Shalit more than Siskel and Ebert, but
wow, okay. I feel like they were on like 7 on Saturdays.
Yeah, I was out partying. You were at home watching
Oh
Siskel and
yeah,
Ebert.
I was a huge Ebert head.
Oh God, it's so embarrassing. That book you had with him like watching the movie.
I will
I,
fucking kill you.
I said, see, the problem with Ebert though is you were an Ebert head, but like I never agreed with Ebert's takes on like 75% of the stuff.
Oh
I was
yeah,
more of a Siskel guy.
yeah. The thing is that Ebert, I liked him because he was sort of emotionally open, and it was like having a friend, but you knew the friend would be wrong sometimes.
Uh,
Like even as a kid, some of his opinions, I was like, that's just crazy.
I remember going berserk when I think
Berserk.
Full Metal Jacket. Yeah. I tore up the tore up the house with Full Metal
Uh,
Jacket where he hated it.
oh well, that's a famous episode. So I watched that episode. Did you watch that?
No, but I figured you watch it so you would, enlighten me, what
But
transpired there.
one more bit about this book. So it's about their relationship, which was very contentious at first, and they grew to love each other. It's pretty interesting in that respect. But there's just one part of the book that I love where it talks about when they were in syndication, like in the mid '80s. All
Mhm.
the syndicated stars would go to this one conference where all like the TV station owners from all across the country would walk around like planning their schedule, but they would like literally meet Siskel and Ebert like at a booth. But also Soupy Sales, Regis
Yeah.
Philbin, and the WWE, then the WWF would have like full matches in this conference center.
Wow.
Isn't that a crazy thing to picture with all those '80s
Yeah.
syndicated stars?
Robot should get a piece of the money. He really should.
Back off, little man.
That's where I want to go. I want to go back
I,
to that.
I know, me too. I want to make a movie set in that venue, but it's like
Mm.
the target audience is dying by the minute. So, Rusty, we both watched a couple episodes of Siskel and Ebert. I think it'd be interesting just to go through what they said, because the ones I watched were very rewarding.
All right, tell me about what you saw.
Okay, I'll start with my first episode, which was the famous Full Metal Jacket episode. This is known to be one of Siskel and Ebert's biggest fights. And it is crazy because Ebert doesn't like the movie. And the thing is that a lot of those criticisms he makes were made back at the time. Like Full Metal Jacket, I feel like now is accepted as a classic, but
Mm.
it was one of those movies that had a slightly mixed reception at the time.
Yeah, but that was a lot of Kubrick's work though.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any like towering director who releases a movie every like 5 years or whatever, like that's always kind of the reaction.
I think even
But
when Eyes Wide Shut came out, it was the same thing.
oh yeah, oh my God, Eyes Wide Shut got such mixed reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, mixed to positive, but like I feel like now no one thinks about the same shit they thought about back then.
Did I ever tell you my Eyes Wide Shut story? Did I say that on here? I probably did.
No.
Oh, well, I saw Eyes Wide Shut opening night in theaters with a friend of ours.
Mhm.
I'll say the name of it. You can bleep it out, Joe.
Yeah. I think I know where this is going. Didn't you try to jerk off in the theater? But you can tell it as it
Well,
unfolds.
so we, so he, I mean, I knew the premise of the movie. I knew that, about the scenes. I know that they were edited and, there was stuff digitally, put over it. So to cover some of it, but there's still, some graphic sex scenes. And we're going to theater opening night, and it's actually pretty empty for opening night. And we go to sit down middle, and I go to sit next to him like you would do if you were going with a friend. And he goes, "Don't sit next to me." I'm just like, "Why?" He's just like, "Because I might need to jerk off."
Because I might need to jerk off.
I don't know if he did, but I couldn't sit next to him. So the whole time I was just sitting 2 seats away, 3 seats far away. There was 2 seats, between us.
Well, it would have been so
So
awkward
weird.
if you were with someone at a movie theater who then got arrested for like jerking off in the theater, and he's like, "Rusty, help me!" You like pretend not to know him.
Definitely.
Well, one thing I think is interesting about watching these episodes is you forget which movies came out right around the same time. Because the next
Uh,
movie after Full Metal Jacket, which I'm going to return to their fight because it keeps coming back in the episode. Um,
Mm.
but the next film was Spaceballs, and Gene liked it. Ebert didn't. Siskel said that's another one you're wrong on.
Wait,
But I've
Spaceballs
never
came out in
been.
'87 too?
Yeah,
Oh wow! Oh, it came out right around the same time as Full Metal Jacket.
It's in the same episode. That's the point of what my story.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying I'm trying to fathom that. That's crazy to think that like, oh, okay. Because I saw Spaceballs in theaters, but obviously I didn't see Full Metal Jacket until like probably like 1990, 91. So there was a gap. I'm just processing it. So what
The
did they say
next
about
movie.
Spaceballs?
Oh, Spaceballs. Ebert didn't really like it,
Mm.
and Siskel did, and was like, "This is another one you're wrong on." As we know,
Yeah, I agree.
I was never a huge Spaceballs fan, just because I felt like they
You were
got
a
certain
loyalist.
aspects of Star Wars wrong. Yeah, I was offended by the film.
You're George Lucas apologist, but George Lucas loved it, right? I think he was a huge fan of it.
I don't know anything about that.
I'm pretty sure. When I think about that movie, I think of it very fondly, but when I watch it, I'm just like, why am I watching this?
Just as a kid, that Mel Brooks broad comedy, like there's other types of broad comedy that work for me, but something about Mel Brooks I never liked.
You could say that in 2024, but if you said that in like 1987, trashing Mel Brooks, people would have been getting their pitchforks for you.
And also, I honestly was also a big Robin Hood Prince of Thieves fan, that his Robin Hood Men in Tights, I was like, this guy's done it again. He's looking for a fucking beating from me.
Were you really a Prince of Thieves? Actually, I was too.
Oh,
Am I
yeah.
kidding?
Oh my God. You won't believe the next film, Ebert. I don't even mean this as a weight comment, but he's grinning like a pig in shit as he's grinning. Like Ebert could be kind of cringy when it was like a movie he loves. I mean, I feel bad saying that because also it's good to be that way. But him and Siskel loved the movie Roxanne.
It's one of the most romantic and good-hearted, whimsical love stories I've seen in a long time.
I never liked that movie.
Really?
No, I never like it. It was always on HBO, and I was just like never into it.
I liked it, but I remember when it came out, it got like a rapturous response where people were like, "This is comedy, everyone."
But everybody loved Steve Martin at the time too.
Yeah.
Like he could do no wrong. Like I know Ebert also praised like Parenthood.
Ebert praised a lot of questionable things, such as in the next film in this episode, which was Benji the Hunted. And it's actually an amazing moment worth watching. I might even put the clip in here. Although it's better you got to see how Siskel's reacting, because Ebert starts praising Benji the Hunted, and Siskel's like, "You didn't like Full Metal Jacket and you like Benji the Hunted," and he starts like, it almost looks like his life force is being sucked out of him by like Emperor Palpatine. Like his like eyes are like shutting. He's like so destroyed by this.
Beautiful photography, those cute little cougar cubs, which you mentioned, the magnificence of the other animals, the adventures, the little kittens crossing the stream, the very shot you pointed out. This movie is a movie that kids would really enjoy.
No, you know what they should see? Roger, my rebuttal of this film is, you're wrapping yourself in the flag of children, and I'm saying go see the Black Stallion instead. There's a film with little dialogue, so much better.
I'm not wrapping myself in the flag of children. You're wrapping yourself in the flag of the sophisticated film critic who's seen it all.
No, boredom with Benji running.
That segment goes off like kind of normally, and then despite that disagreement, then the video section comes up, which is Dr. Strangelove and Paths of Glory. And Ebert is saying like, "Oh, these are great movies to check out, unlike the disappointing Full Metal Jacket." And Siskel says something to the effect of like, "You liked Benji the Hunted and you gave Full Metal Jacket a bad review. That's going to look horrible in the future." And Ebert gets so offended where he's like, "How dare you? We review these movies in context. How dare you break our rule to compare my liking I like Benji the Hunted for kids. It's for kids."
So it's not fair for you to compare those two reviews, and you know it, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
No, I'm not.
Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed this week.
I don't even think I've ever heard of that movie.
Benji the Hunted? Well, it's a Benji
I know
film.
Benji. I mean, I feel like after the first one, you would stop even reviewing them.
Oh yeah. I mean, even the clips they showed on the show, which they used to have to go get those clips manually. Like they would like, after they saw the movie, they'd be like, "Get us a clip of this and this and that." But the Benji the Hunted clip, I'm like, I feel like I'm witnessing a war crime. Like just seeing like the stuff that like a cat and a dog and like some other animal are doing in this scene. I'm like, they probably went through 30 of those.
I remember with the first Benji movie when my mom rented it for me, and I thought Benji was so adorable.
Oh yeah.
Like I got teary-eyed at the thought of being able to own a Benji dog someday. As a little kid, I was just like, it'd be so precious.
Well, actually, before we get into your episode, I'll tell you a great story. You know,
Okay.
Siskel and Ebert, they were famously competitive, and they were actually kind of petty and immature towards each other. And they determined that the two best seats on a plane were the front row window in first class, which is crazy to me because then you have to put your shit in the overhead. And then like, I'm too shy to get up and get my bag. So I just sit there like, fuck. So that I don't like the front row. And then the third row on the other side of the plane. Now they would always fight about who was going to get the first row because they both preferred that. And they were at the airport and they were mad at each other because they were fighting over the seat. And then Siskel walked off for a while and he came back and he said, Roger, I want you to have the good seat. Roger couldn't believe how generous Gene was being. Then the flight takes off, they're flying, and he keeps hearing Gene Siskel being super funny, telling his best stories. And he's like, what the hell's going on? He turns around. He was sitting next to Cindy Crawford. And somehow Siskel found out that Cindy Crawford was on his flight in that seat. And so then he took the lesser seat to be next to her. Smooth operator.
Did he eventually write her a letter saying, how could you not date me? I give you my best material.
He sent her 3 letters because he wasn't sure of the address.
She said, I did get all 3.
I got all 3. I read none.
That was like what year is this? Because I'm sure that was the height of Cindy Crawford.
It was like 1994 or something.
I feel like you might have been a Cindy Crawford poser.
I was not a Cindy Crawford poser.
Oh, you were legitimately into Cindy Crawford?
Oh yeah, no, I was in the bushes outside of her house.
I remember the other very risque move was to call girls, like cold call them on the phone.
Oh my God, that's so insane.
And I remember a girl that I really knew nothing about, just thought she was cute. And I got her number and I called her and she vaguely knew who I was. And I was just telling her about my day pretty much because she obviously had no interest. So she was just trying to like wrap things up. And I like ran out of material. So then I was just going on about the most like mundane things. And I couldn't pick up the cues at all.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, now thinking back on that, it's so cringy. I remember telling her that I bought a pair of sunglasses. And I said, do you wear sunglasses? Like, what kind of conversation is that?
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you appreciate it.
First, Roxanne is attracted to the fire department's handsome young consultant, but he is too dumb to carry on a conversation, so Martin radios him his dialogue to earphones concealed underneath his ear flaps in the movie's funniest scene.
Did you ever have any success with doing like that, random calls or anything? Letters, calls?
Not even close.
I feel like my best move was like walking into something and just being natural about it and not realizing there was a moment. Like I remember like being in study hall and this was like a popular girl too. And I was just being like, just talking to her randomly and being funny. And then like the next day, one of her friends came up to me like, all right, do you have any interest in this girl? And I was just like, never thought about it, but okay. That's where I like did the best. Whenever I like pursued and like was just obsessive about someone, that's when it would always backfire.
Well, yeah, because one is normal real life and the other one is firing an arrow through a window with a note attached.
Don't you just wish, I mean, I think this is everybody's thought, is that don't you just wish you could go back and just correct that like quantum leap? Just have Sam Beckett jump into your body, go back to that moment.
I guess
correct
I don't
the
know.
Wrongs of history.
The thing is, even though I did such embarrassing things, I don't know that it would worked out if I hadn't done embarrassing things. So
yeah,
I have some great Siskel and Ebert content, including Ebert's worst takes, because he would sometimes just completely whiff. Also, the last thing that Siskel talked about was fucking insane. Well, I shouldn't say fucking insane, but it was like his opinion on this one movie.
When he was like dying?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's right. He went up until the end, right? He was doing it?
Yeah. And I watched the episode. It's sad because like he is really struggling.
What did he have? Brain cancer or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since I read that in the book, I've like had headaches. I'm like, this is just completely psychological.
I don't know why I'm laughing at that. It's horrible. Is that what he had? Headaches? Start over with a headache?
Yeah. But before you get to your episode, I'll tell you the Siskel's last thing because it's totally crazy. He was advocating for someone to get a Best Actor nomination in a certain film. You could guess for 10,000 years, and you would never guess the person.
Well, what year did he pass away? In the early 2000s?
I think in the late 90s.
Oh, really? I thought he made it to the 2000s. Okay, so late 90s. What did you say? Best Actor?
Yeah, I'll give you a hint.
Roberto Benigni.
He is a good actor. Very bad politics. But this is a bad movie. Yes. Well,
John Voight?
No. Close-ish.
Who else is there?
Here's a real obvious hint.
Kevin Sorbo.
No. It's a bad movie from a good director, and the movie has his name in the title.
Charlton Heston. My Dinner with Charlton Heston. No, okay. It was.
He was saying that James Woods should be nominated for John Carpenter's Vampires for Best Actor.
Nobody even knows that movie.
I mean, that was horrible at the time, and I've always liked John Carpenter, and I went into it like, he made a vampire movie. This could be so cool, and I really hated that movie.
Yeah, James Woods.
And it's just crazy because, Siskel and Ebert, one of their legacies is having weird takes on horror movies. Because during like the slasher boom, they literally thought that like Friday the 13th was going to make people into murderers.
Just you.
Yeah, it only worked on me. But before I get into Ebert's worst takes, let's hear what episodes you watched.
So the episode that I watched, I watched a couple of them. I just picked very random things because I was curious about what Ebert would say, knowing your history with him. But I picked 1987 with the Back to the Beach was the big one.
I never saw that. I never even came close to seeing that.
What do you think they would say about that? Now you know what Back to the Beach is, right?
Yeah,
with Frank Gavilan and Annette Funicello.
Yeah, so they were like movies for teens, right? That were like beach.
Yeah, they were like campy
movies.
Beach. Yeah, very yes.
And that was like the return to form, like 50s nostalgia. And in that movie, they were probably younger than we are now.
But it was like campy, but it was like spoofing the campiness of the 60s movies. And like Pee Wee Herman makes an appearance, and there's like original music. It's kind of like a musical, kind of a comedy. Like there's, Anyways, I was shocked to see that both of them loved it.
I was about to say it could have gone either way.
They, with the summer of like with Predator and stuff, they're like, this is the movie to see this summer.
Wow.
They both
That's
loved
a movie
it.
that has no cultural resonance. I don't know what you'd say. When was the last time someone watched Back to the Beach?
I used to like it as a kid in the 80s, like in 87. I don't know about nowadays. I never had the desire to rewatch it. But Siskel said it's the best movie of its kind, meaning like that kind of comedy musical. He says it's probably better than Grease. You probably would agree. You're not a Grease fan at all.
Clearly, he never saw Surf 2.
Oh my! I love that movie.
My brother there was grease stickers on this dresser when I was growing up, and I just hated the look of greaser kind of people, and it's been a prejudice I've had my whole life.
Is that still a problem? Oh, what's that area? That area in Japan that has like that park that the greasers go to and dance every like weekend.
I'm glad I missed it. All I know is when I read The Outsiders, I was like, I need to form like a third group. Like a real renegade group to fight them both.
When you hear the name Pony Boy, it makes your blood boil.
Well, I always have hated that name.
Pony Boy.
All right. What else? 1987. What else was in that episode?
Nadine, Jeff Bridges, Kim Basinger, whatever her name is.
No one knows.
Big disappointment. I don't remember it at all. It's another comedy, murder comedy kind of thing. Jeff Bridges is supposed to be hilarious at it. That's the only redeeming thing. but the love story is very unbelievable, according to Siskel. The other movie is Dirty Dancing, which is what I was more interested in.
Oh, okay.
I was actually surprised that neither of them like really loved it. And Siskel gave it a marginal recommendation, mainly due to the dancing and Jennifer Grey. No love for Patrick Swayze.
And I might be wrong. Sorry,
yeah.
I might be wrong, but I think I heard the other day that Dirty Dancing was like the 100th movie at the box office that year.
Oh, really?
It was not a theatrical hit.
No, it wasn't. I think it definitely built up over the years. It's good. I like it, and I always liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the music. The dancing's nice. Ebert was a little let down because he didn't like the abortion subplot. He said it was an idiot plot. He said too predictable.
Yeah. I remember that phrase.
Yeah. And then the last thing was Rita, Sue, and Bob 2. It's an English film.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever seen that? I never even heard of it.
The name inspired hate in me, but now that it's British, it's a little different, I guess.
Yeah. The thing that I'm interested in, they both almost liked it, but they said that there was way too much sex, which intrigues me. Should have gotten an R rating. But they said it's interesting, except for the last shot, which was totally gratuitous, which I don't know exactly. They didn't really describe it other than that. And it causes them both to hate it, giving it a thumbs down. And now I'm really curious about this last shot of the movie.
It's the male lead fucking a toilet.
I'm very curious. I might have to watch this fucking movie just to see what they were talking about.
The next episode I watched was another famous one because it's the only time that one of them convinced the other to change his thumb rating. And it was the movie Broken Arrow, directed by my old friend John Woo. Remember when I was related to John Woo? Hey, we were cinephiles in the 90s. That's what it was.
You liked John Woo so much that you whenever we made characters in any game we played, you did Chow Yun Fat because he was in a lot of John Woo movies.
Yeah. And there's a picture of me in like my dorm room in Berkeley with like my head in my hands. And my posters are The Killer and Manhattan. I was like, that is really sums it up.
That's like where you're trying to be pretentious, but they're not. It's not. It's weird.
Oh, yeah. No, it's really shallow end of the pool.
It's like Manhattan.
It's like my old roommate used to date these guys that were like complete frat guys, but they had like read one book and it's like On the Road blew my mind, dude. And we'd call them Renaissance bros. And I have to admit that basically is kind of, the film version. But I was young.
Yeah.
Now I just watch YouTube. But Broken Arrow, they end up, Siskel's like, it's not that great, but the action's fun. It's cool. I'll give it a thumbs up. And Ebert was like, there are action movies that rise to this level, and this one's just not there. And Siskel said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think you're right. He takes it back. And then there's a great exchange because Siskel says, now that I did that, I need you to admit that Cop and a Half is bad. And Ebert is like totally offended again. And Ebert's like, I saw something in Cop and a Half. There was a story in the book about how Ebert had given Cop and a Half a good review. And Siskel was just completely flabbergasted by this. And Ebert got a signed photo from like the young kid in the film. Do you remember the movie? It's like Burt Reynolds, like a little black kid.
Yeah, I remember that the cover art on the VHS so clearly. Like the handcuffs are like over his face, right?
Oh yeah. And so Ebert got a letter in the mail, and it was a signed photo from that kid, and it was like, "Thank you, like you're a really great critic. Your words meant so much to me." And Ebert was like, "Siskel, get in here. Look at this. See, this is a fine young man you denigrated. Look at this fine young man wrote me a letter." And then Siskel was like, "You idiot! I wrote that letter." Which is a prank.
Oh, really? That's funny.
The second movie, another first for the show, was Black Sheep with Chris Farley.
Oh my goodness.
David Spade.
I used to watch that movie I don't remember anything about it except Gary Busey was in it for a moment, but oh my God.
But as
when
I'm
you
sure
were watching
you could tell,
this episode,
Oh, go on.
Were you having difficulty breathing at all these movies, like these
It
blasts from
was
the past?
blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm not even a fan of Black Sheep, but I just knew that they were going to come at it like too hard, where they were like, "This is a disgrace." And
Really, I thought they would give it a pass.
now I'm really gonna date myself here, but you know the famous Lloyd, is it Lloyd Benson, Dukakis's running mate.
Oh, I don't remember.
Anyway, but he had the famous line with Dan Quayle where Dan Quayle had like compared himself to JFK, and he was like, "I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. You are no Jack Kennedy."
Yeah, that's famous.
But Siskel does that to Chris Farley, and he's like, "I knew John Belushi. John Belushi's a friend of mine. You're no John Belushi." And I'm just like, man, this is brutal. The guy died pretty soon after that. Now
man,
I've got to
trippy. That's a movie I never think about. Black Sheep.
Oh yeah. What was Tommy Boy was the first of that series?
Yeah,
right?
that was David Spade, Chris Farley, and then they did Black Sheep. They didn't do the Beverly Hills Ninja, right? Together. That was just Chris Farley on his own.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I went to that opening day.
Dressed like him, I think.
I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. Ninjas, a comedy. And even being young, I was like, this is not good.
No. You were on board for Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy, I taped off the TV. I would watch that periodically. Black Sheep was a little less.
Now,
man, that was what, 90? We're talking about 93, 94, I guess.
I believe it's 94.
Yeah, wow.
I believe so. Because the next movie is another iconic movie. And let me tell you, my asshole was clenched the entire time. I thought they were going to say something crazy. But the movie Beautiful Girls.
Oh my God. You and our other friends were obsessed with that movie.
I was never obsessed with that movie. We hit me with that brush.
Okay. But we had friends that were obsessed with that movie.
Yeah.
It was like weird, creepy because they tried to relate to the go-on. So
that's why I was afraid that like Siskel and Ebert were going to be like Natalie Portman looking very supple as a 12-year-old. Like I thought, but that was like, friends that were into the movie were like, oh, wouldn't you date her? Like if you were,
yeah,
look, they were 15 awful at the time, but they should burn for their comments.
That was good.
But of course, Siskel and Ebert loved it.
Yeah. That's a dated movie. That's a hard watch now.
I can't imagine watching that.
No, gouge out my eyes.
Now, the craziest thing is, so there's like three, I want to say iconic, but three movies that we totally recognize. And then the next movie I had no memory of, which was A Midwinter's Tale. Now, you would think I would know this movie because I am a guy who used to own a giant Kenneth Branagh Hamlet poster. Which I never got through that movie. That was a real poster.
It wasn't even a cool poster. The art was awful.
Yeah, well, the art was just like a photo of Kenneth Branagh. I had like a bigger than life size Kenneth Branagh when I was 17.
Nobody knows who that is anymore. Kenneth Branagh is irrelevant.
But he directed the first Thor. It came out when you were born.
Wait, so what's the Midsummer's? What is it? Midsummer's Night's Tale?
It's Midwinter's Tale.
Midwinter's Tale. Midsummer.
I think
throw me off with the Midsummer.
I'm not sure, but I do believe that it was I think it's a Shakespearean adaptation of like one of the ones where you're like, he wrote that. But I think it's set in contemporary times. It was in black and white. That's all I could tell you. But two big thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. They were not going to give Branagh a thumbs down during this period.
No. It was beloved at that time.
And then the next movie was called Antonia's Line, which I vaguely remember being like a critically acclaimed movie of the era.
I'd never even heard of that.
And let me just tell you one more episode I watched, although it's not that noteworthy, but Godfather 3, which they liked with reservations.
Yeah.
You won't believe how classic the next film is.
Wait, so this is, when did Godfather 3 come out? I need to place the year. Sorry.
1990.
What I was doing. 1990. Okay.
Godfather 3, the centerpiece of the episode. Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, I watched that somewhat recently, like within this year.
Really? How did you like it? Oh yeah, I always liked that movie.
Yeah, the first act when he's like, hunting down the guy is I forgot about that. I was just like, oh, this is actually good cinema here right here.
Oh yeah, and the guy Richard Tyson, is that his name? I remember he was in another film we covered.
He was he plays a good villain.
Oh yeah, no, he's like the most believable villain in a movie with this many kids.
Yeah.
I remember just hating him as a child when I saw the movie.
It's funny when you're like a teenager and you're watching a movie that's geared towards kids with with actors that are kids, and you're like, oh, I hate this. I hate these kids. But when you're an adult and you have kids, you find it more endearing. So
yeah,
I'd say once rewatch it when your kid's like a year to 2 years old, when they start talking, and you'll appreciate the movie.
Yeah,
I get it.
I had a really mixed reaction towards the kid because on the one hand, like when he was like, I'm putting up my lasers, I was like, that makes me sick. But on the other hand, I was like, that they might work though.
I didn't forget the scene, but I knew that would putting up my lasers.
I gotta put on my lasers. I feel like they were like, okay, we need some other danger with the kid. And like a writer being like, okay, hear me out. This is gonna sound dumb at first, but listen. Then the next movie, Bonfire of the Vanities.
I've never seen that, believe it or not.
I've never seen it either. There's a great book about it called The Devil's Candy, which is one of the like most iconic like making of books, because Brian De Palma allowed this New Yorker article to like be completely embedded in the production, and she documented everything going like horrifically wrong. And so many people involved in the book then tried to sue her, like Bruce Willis, who came off bad. But it's one of the best books about a production gone wrong.
Yeah. Who wrote the book for that? That's not the one Carrie Fisher wrote, right?
No, it's Tom Wolfe.
Tom Wolfe. Oh, okay. Carrie Fisher wrote
Postcards from the Edge.
That I don't know why I'm thinking that. Okay. Yeah, that
Edge, Bonfire. I see them together in my mind as well.
Same time period.
The next movie was a movie that I often saw at the VHS store. Specifically a shitty one. I know. Specifically a shitty one that was part of a froyo place. It was called Jimbo's.
I know which place you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. And this movie I never saw, never will see, but it was just like a box cover you would see. Russia House.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
It's with Michelle Pfeiffer and Sean Connery. The scenes they showed from the movie, I was like, this looks awful. And indeed, they both gave it 2 thumbs down. It's about
Sean Connery.
I think Michelle Pfeiffer's she's like a Soviet spy or something, and he's doing something as well. That's I didn't retain much.
I remember like the famous thing with Roger Moore when he didn't want to play Bond anymore because he felt kind of like gross that he was an older gentleman, like being paired up with like 20-year-olds. That didn't stop Sean Connery though. He was
not at all.
House. He was doing Entrapment, stuff like that,
and it was still kind of normal back then. So it's wild looking back.
Yeah.
Okay. So you watched another episode?
Yeah, I watched 1991.
All right. Before you get into that, I'm going to give you a couple of Ebert's worst takes.
Okay, I like that.
And I got this from a Reddit thread because this first one, when I read the comment, I was like, that can't be true. And then I read the review and it really was. He gave Die Hard a bad review, the original Die Hard.
That's amazing. I mean, amazingly bad.
The reason that he gave it a bad review, like even his review, he says, if this wasn't in it, like the movie would be good. You'll never guess. It was Paul Gleason's cop character. It's like, even if you didn't like that character, you can't say it ruins the whole movie. But that's what he said. He was like, if not for that cop, it would have been a good film.
That character is not even that memorable. Like,
I mean, he doesn't have that many scenes.
Yeah, to detract from the quality of, I mean, it really has no bearing on the overall, action of the movie.
He also liked Home Alone 3 better than Home Alone 1 and 2.
I remember that in high school. I used to always rag on you for that Ebert had that take.
This one's crazy. He gave this movie 3.5 stars and said it is best seen as an experimental art film. The movie is Spawn, the adaptation of the Tom McFarlane comic.
That was a rough watch in the theaters.
I know. I wanted to like it. I was like, I think I'm going to get into Spawn. I'm finally going to be a guy that likes Spawn. But it's like the story was never good. Like, and the movie was obviously shit.
Yeah. Oh God, that was a waste of money. All right.
Of course, Ebert had the reviews that were just like pure moral outrage. And even though he was like a liberal guy, like sometimes he came off as like a member of like the moral majority, you know.
Yeah.
He famously gave 1 star to Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where he just ranted, "How could they do this to Jennifer Jason Leigh? How could you?" And he also gave 1 star to Blue Velvet and did the same thing with is Isabella Rossellini? Is that who? I always get my Isabellas. And he's like, "How could you do this to her?" Oh, it's really good. You should watch it immediately.
Really?
And I'm like a late comer to it. Like I didn't see it till I was in my 50s. No, but I really didn't see it until I think I first saw it at a drive-in during the pandemic. And I was like, whoa, this movie actually is really good. Because even though, as we've touched on, I had kind of basic film guy tastes until yesterday. But like David Lynch, I was always like, oh, that's what people who are trying to be. It's like Tim Burton, David Lynch, like, so I always kind of shied away. But no, that's a great movie.
Really? It's funny because they actually referred to it in one of the reviews to Blue Velvet. I was like, I've never seen that. And now you just brought it up.
That is crazy. He also didn't like Clockwork Orange, but
that's ridiculous.
This did send me on a whole thing because I was like, I like Clockwork Orange, but I can't really tell you what the point of it is. Not that a movie needs to have such a point, but you know what I mean? I'm not sure exactly what is it saying?
I think you have to be English at that time period to understand it more, but I think it has I mean, I've watched videos about it. I think it's pretty impactful.
I mean, I love it. I take it to mean, yeah, I don't mean that as a criticism.
Oh, okay.
I take it more like, hey, we're crazy, but these guys are dicks too. Life's crazy. That's wild, man. Let's hear about your next episode.
Oh, okay. 1991. What do you think the big movie in 1991? I was curious about to see what they would say.
Was T2 91?
Yep.
Was that the movie?
That was the movie. I had to say what they said about it. I was expecting one of them to like have something bad to say, but they both loved it.
Oh yeah.
They didn't really talk much about it. They just they both said they loved it. They loved the action. They loved Arnold. They said it was just the right amount of seriousness. And they liked that the casting of Robert Patrick as not like a menacing Terminator, but he was with his focus and his drive instead of being like muscular and stuff, which is true.
I listened to his episode of WTF the other day.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, it's pretty interesting. But there's one point where he's like, "Hey, what time is it?" And Marin's like, "Why? Do you have somewhere to be?" And he's like, "Yeah, the AC repairman's coming over. I got to be home for the AC repairman." And you could hear Marin like stewing, like being like, "What the fuck?" But that is like me. I'm the master of scheduling like a repair guy when I've got something else going on.
As Robert Patrick, what would you say his other big films are? Fire in the Sky?
Fire in the Sky. Then he's done a lot of TV, like X-Files, Peacemaker. I think Yellowstone, one of the Yellowstone realm of shows.
Do you remember going nuts when you saw his cameo in Wayne's World?
Sopranos. Oh yeah, dude, that was classic. I've actually been meaning to rewatch Wayne's World.
We watched that at Europe when you lived in Wanta. We watched that and we didn't enjoy it, but maybe coming back around to it be different.
Yeah, I guess it's been 35 years, so
give it another chance. Wayne's World 2, though, you think that's bearable?
No, that's shit. Because I think something happened with that movie where it was forced into production really fast. So I think even Mike Myers would agree.
Yeah. The other movies in this episode was Reflecting Skin.
What? I never heard of that.
Nah. I don't know. This is where they compared it to like a David Lynch kind of work in Blue Velvet. And also they said it has the visual style of Andrew Wyeth painting, which is interesting, but they said that everything else is pretty bad about the actor. The kid actor is horrible. Just everything's bad. It's too nightmarish of a world.
Too nightmarish of a world. Okay.
Yeah. Naked Gun 2.5.
Oh, okay. I'm curious about this.
Believe it or not, they loved it.
Okay, good.
Which is cool because the third one's kind of rough, but 1 and 2 are good.
I remember Ebert loving Top Secret, that I always felt like I was trying to get into more than I was as a kid. I was like, why don't I like this as much as Airplane?
It's funny because he actually says in this one, he said it's good, he liked it, but not as good as Top Secret or Airplane. His quote. But he said it's one of those things he liked it because you laugh at the joke and then you laugh at yourself, meaning it's, so dumb it's funny.
Do you know that Siskel and Ebert's studio was the site of the famous Nixon-Kennedy debate?
Really?
Yes. Like the one where Nixon was like looking rough.
Yeah. Sweating on TV.
Sweating on TV. It's my dream.
Wasn't it known that he was sick too for that? Or was Kennedy sick for that?
I couldn't tell you.
Somebody was sweating. Somebody was sick.
Here's another bad Ebert take. He liked the first Harry Potter movie, which, like, objectively, the first Harry Potter movie is not as good as like the third one. But he liked the first Harry Potter movie more than Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh.
We have some friends that mess him up for that one.
I have to say, I do like the first Harry Potter movie just because it's the origin story.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the effects are abysmal that it's very hard to appreciate the whole movie. I asked Jen what her favorite Harry Potter movie was, and I nearly fell off the chair.
What did she say?
Goblet of Fire. And I feel like that's one of the worst movies.
I really like the book.
I like the book a lot, but the movie sucks.
Yeah. No, the movie was very forgettable.
Yeah. My favorite movie is probably the third one.
Yeah, that's the only cool choice.
Yeah. But I think my favorite book might be the sixth one, The Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah. My favorite book is probably her tweets. He also liked the Golden Compass.
You made me knee slap on that.
All right. He liked, remember the Golden Compass adaptation, the movie with like Nicole Kidman?
Yeah.
He liked it better than Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter movies.
Did he have cancer then at this time?
He got it like 5 years after Siskel died. I think the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that he had thyroid cancer, and it was a result probably of, I can't remember what they used to like irradiate kids like in the 50s for like basically like no reason, like it was like an old practice, and like so many of those kids got cancer.
Like those radium tablets that they would give in like the 30s. That famous picture of the guy that like his jaw fell off.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what happened to him. And
I know.
Speaking of radiation, he gave 1.5 stars to the original Godzilla. That's crazy. That's in the Criterion Collection.
Wait, which original Godzilla? Because
the Japanese one, not the Raymond Burr.
Okay. And you're outraged by that?
Yeah, I dug him up and stomped on him as if I was a giant monster. That's not even good. Did you watch any other episodes?
No, the only other movie was I was going to, and then the quality, on YouTube of these episodes are so bad.
You can clear your throat if you want.
The quality was so bad on some of these episodes, it took me right out of it, and I didn't get into finishing.
Yeah. I tried there. They did a lot of, so it was a weekly show, but there weren't enough movies to fill every week, which is crazy to me because it seems like so many more movies came out back in the day than they do now. Yeah. So they had like a set amount of special episodes they would do per year. And one of them was called Hail, Hail, Black and White, just about how black and white is cool and blah, blah, blah. But they did the episode in black and white. But do you remember the Twilight Zone episodes where to save budget, they shot them on video and it looks like the worst thing on earth? Yeah. It was like, and on YouTube, I put it on for like a second. I was like, I can't watch this whole episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It looked like that footage of the guy wearing the Max Headroom mask, like hijacking their airwaves. Yeah. It looked like that. It looked so bad. But I also noticed on some of the episodes when they, like you said, they didn't have enough filler or enough movies, so they had to add filler, and they would do like TV movies or they would do like, why is Julia Roberts being typecast? And then they would like show some different roles. She's like, she's the same character in Sleeping in the Enemy as she is in whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Sleeping with the Enemy. I said Sleeping in the Enemy. It's very. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, of course. They were famous champions of certain films.
Go on.
My Dinner with Andre, like you mentioned.
I do call My Dinner with Andre.
Yeah. Hoop Dreams is probably the most famous one.
You had the VHS.
I did.
I think you watched that more than like once too.
I did. And I didn't know this story. So it was famously not nominated for Best Documentary. And the director was watching it at like the production company's office, and he was like expecting to get nominated. They did not. It was kind of like a somber event. He walked home, went into his apartment, and his phone was ringing, and he answered it, and it was just Ebert screaming, like, "This is an outrage!"
What did he? Oh, what was? Let me clear my thought. What was nominated in place of it?
There's no way I'm going to know
that. You're a film guy. You don't know
that. Gates of Heaven. Basically, they started Errol Morris's career because Gates of Heaven, his documentary about pet cemeteries, I believe, was completely didn't even get good reviews. It would like slip through the cracks, and then they discovered it. And unbeknownst to him, they did a huge like tribute to it about how it was like the best movie of the year. And he was just watching the episode randomly and was like, "What the hell?" Man, that's kind of that doesn't happen anymore because Siskel and Ebert are dead.
Go on.
I'm dead. I'm done. I'm dead. Do you have anything else to say about Siskel and Ebert?
I don't know. I got zapped in like the last 2 minutes. I'm out of notes. So I'm just like I'm scanning through my notes. And I don't have anything.
Well, Rusty, that wraps it up. We are ending this episode on election night. On the day, no, not election night. The day before the election.
Yes. Yeah. And we know nothing right now.
We know nothing. And today is probably the day I've consumed the least news about it. I've been obsessively reading about this. I'm like, oh, the results in the polling for Iowa's 4th district mean that Harris is going to win.
Yeah, I don't. They're still saying it's leaning towards Trump. I don't. Is this on the podcast? I don't know.
This is on the podcast. There's no way Harris is going to blow him out.
You think so?
Oh yeah, it's going to be a demolition. And if Trump does win, I'm going to feel pretty depressed when I'm editing this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for staying up as well.